Welcome back to part 3 of the custom shower build. We've got our pre-slope poured and our waterproofing is nice and dry. The pre-slope is set at about around a 1/4 inch per foot drop, maybe a little bit more. What we need to do now is set the height of our drain at about 1 inch to 1 1/4 inches high. Take that measurement and transfer it to the curb so when we pour our floor, we keep that same 1/4 inch per foot drop. After that, we'll get those walls put in and I'll answer the question of why I poured a 1/6 wide curb. So first thing we need to do is set the height of the drain. Now I'm thinking I want my deck mud to be about 1 1/4 inches thick. So I'm going to set the drain to 1 1/4 inches high. That's about right there, 1 1/4 inches. So we're going to transfer that 1 1/4 inch height at the drain to 1 1/4 inches high on the wall. And do that the same way I did before when I did my pre-slope. I have this board cut so that when I put a Sharpie on top of that board, from the bottom of the board to the tip of the Sharpie is 1 1/4 inches. So just simply hold that there. And scribe your line. Now we've got a line all the way around the shower. Now don't worry if your line isn't perfectly straight. I've got a couple little high spots right here in my line. It doesn't matter. You're going to use leveling sticks to go from your drain out to there to make sure it's all flat and level. You can take that stick, sit it over here right up against your wall, make sure your deck mud's level. So this is my mixing station here. It's really high tech. A couple buckets, some sand, and some Portland cement. Now this is just medium grade sand. You can buy deck mud already mixed in a bag. I think you can buy it in 3-to-1 mix or sometimes 4 or 5-to-1 mix. Depends on where you live and what you have available. I just mix my own. I mix it 5-to-1, 1 thing of Portland cement, 5 things medium sand. Use just a mixing bucket. Now this doesn't matter if it has markings on it or not. It can just be a regular bucket of some sort. You fill it to the top, that's 1. 5 things of this, 1 thing of this, the measurements don't matter. Got 1 thing of Portland cement, pour it in a bucket. Five things of sand. That's 1 mix. Didn't take up a whole lot in that bucket. You don't have to worry about mixing it right now because we're going to mix it when we pour this bucket into the mixing bucket. We're going to mix it all dry before we add water. All right, I got my sticks, my trowel. Got tape over my drain to protect that. I've got rocks around the outside edge for the weep holes. Got water, mix. I think we're ready to start mixing. Let's get this thing poured out. This is a concrete bonding adhesive / acrylic fortifier made by Sika. It's used as a bonding adhesive to improve the bond between old concrete and new concrete or mortar, or as a fortifier for cement, mortar, and concrete to improve strength, adhesion, durability, and water resistance. I'll leave a link to this product in the description. can't believe I forgot about that. Well, live and learn. I mean, I could rip it all up. It's still pretty fresh. Could rip it all up and redo it, but we were gonna tint the mortar mix, tint the floor color, just to see how it would turn out. If it turned out all right, we could just put some clear epoxy over it and we'd have a nice shower floor. We would have to do something with the curb, but oh well, live and learn. Guess I'll use that concrete tint for something else. Now it needs to be said that this shower build is a little bit different than the traditional walk-in shower build. Most walk-in showers are tiled. Now if you're gonna tile the floor, you need to set your drain tile thickness above your deck mud. That way when you tile, your drain and your tile are the same height. We're not gonna tile this. We're gonna coat it probably with an epoxy. So it's gonna be maybe an 1/8 inch thick epoxy. It's not gonna affect the drain. We're not gonna notice it. That's why our deck mud goes straight level with the drain. Well, the floor finish is drying. I had an idea to help secure this wall. If I can get this on here. There we go. I drilled another hole right here so I can attach this wall nice and secure to the ground. So I've got an extra long drill bit, and I got one of my bolts, my lag bolts or expansion bolts, whatever you want to call it, for concrete. I welded a 4-inch extension on it so that I could drill through the curb into the slab so that I wouldn't be putting pressure on this curb. I don't want to put an expansion pressure on the curb as much as I want to hold the wall down to the slab. So if this goes all the way into the slab and I tighten it down, it tightens the wall down to the curb and the curb down to the slab. This concrete's over a week old, not quite fully cured. Cross your fingers, it doesn't crack. So a little tip for you. You want to find a stud in the wall and you're not good at tapping a wall and hearing exactly where they're at. You don't need a stud finder, you just need a small magnet. Get a small, strong magnet, hold it up against the wall. Right there, that's a screw. That's going to be in the center of a stud. So we're going to mark that right there. Basic center of a stud. Bring it over here. Right there. Now that might not be 16 on center because we have the window here. So the framing of the house, we had to put king studs and jack studs underneath or on the side of the window and studs underneath the window. So it doesn't necessarily have to be 16 on center when you're close to a window. We know the wall is 33 inches tall. So that's the top of the wall. So you can see that this stud doesn't line up with the curb. It's close, but it doesn't line up. So I have no way of attaching this little short wall to a stud in this wall, and I don't want to attach it to sheetrock. What we've got to do is cut out, right here, cut a piece of sheetrock out, something big enough so we can put a 2x6 flat this way, right in there. Attach it to that stud, attach it to this stud, then we can put the sheetrock back, put the wall in place, and drill it straight into that piece of 2x6 to secure it to the wall. This is a small miscalculation on my part. I knew I was going to have to add a top plate to this wall to cover that tie-down bolt, but I forgot to add that 1.5 inches of height to the piece of plywood that I have covering the inside of this wall. And of course, more sealant. Here using caulking to seal up any big gaps and cracks, and then more coats of Red Guard to make sure the entire shower is sealed up really tight. So to answer the question on why I poured a 6-inch wide curb, a piece of 2x6 is 5.5 inches wide. Now I wanted to put a piece of 1/2 inch plywood on the inside of this wall so that when we make our epoxy covered foam panels that we're going to line our shower with, I have something solid all the way across to glue that foam panel to. I didn't want to have this panel, this piece of 1/2 inch plywood, go down past the curb. I wanted to keep it up high. Keeping it up higher, having that curb there, water's going to wick up no matter what you do. If water gets past your foam panels, it's going to wick up the wall. The further up the wall it has to wick before it has a chance to get to wood, even though it's covered in multiple layers of Red Guard, it has more protection if it's higher. So I wanted the curb underneath this piece of plywood. I'm going to put a couple more coats of Red Guard on the inside of this shower just to make sure it's sealed up really tight. Now before we can get on to making those epoxy covered foam panels, we need to do some experiments. One of those experiments is going to be with the epoxy, and another experiment is going to be with glue or adhesive to hold those panels to the wall. Hang out, guys. The shower build isn't done, but it's getting there. Until next time, go make something.